I'm getting pulled back to something really hardcore, a really hardcore first principle is that we have a nature, and that nature is aligned with nature herself. And nature's law dictates more than our law. And if you want to think of this from a religious perspective, God made nature and he put his principles within nature. And we do not get to alleviate ourselves of these laws, despite the fact we're on this 300-year run to try break the rules. Eventually, his law will come back. We can't escape that long. It's like a heartbeat trying to jump away from the principle of firmness, which is the hard ground. It's like trying to jump away from gravity. You could jump very, very high, but you'll get pulled down eventually. And so we come across this very, very issue. And so I start to become really obsessed with the idea of nature and what that is. And this brings me to this. So this is called the mouse Utopia experiment.
To see how Dr. Calhoun's mouse universe grew, we'll use the familiar population graph again. Within the first 100 days, the mice went through the period Dr. Calhoun called strive.
So he puts a load of mice in this big, perfect utopia. There's full of food. Everything is perfect. It's perfectly organized. There's abundant resources, no prey, no animals, no disease and all this. And he just sees how it plays out.
This was a period of adjustment. Territories were established and nests were made. The next period lasted about 250 days. The population of the mice doubled every 60 days. This was called the exploit period. The use of resources became unequal. Although each living unit was identical in structure and opportunities, more food and water was consumed in some areas. As the population increased, most mice associated eating and drinking with the presence of others, and crowding developed in certain units. The third period, consisting of 300 days, found the population of mice leveling off. This was called the equilibrium period. Dr. Calhoun noticed that the newer generations of young were inhibited, since most space was already socially defined.
Interesting.
At this time, some unusual behavior became noticeable. Violence became prevalent.
There's the boyos arriving.
Excess males strived for acceptance, were rejected, and withdrew.
Oh shit, no, that's not the
Huddling
boyos.
together, they would exhibit brief flurries of violence among themselves.
Climbing mountains.
The effects of violence became increasingly visible. Certain individuals became targets of repeated attack. These individuals would have badly chewed and scarred tails.
That's going to be the Jargonites.
Other young mice growing into adulthood exhibited an even different type of behavior. Dr. Calhoun called these individuals the beautiful ones. Their time was devoted solely to grooming, eating, and sleeping. They never involved themselves with others, engaged in sex, nor would they fight. All appeared as a beautiful exhibit of the species, with keen, alert eyes and a healthy, well-kept body. These mice, however, could not cope with unusual stimuli. Though they looked inquisitive, they were, in fact, very stupid.
So think about
Dr. Calhoun called the
Instagram
last
from that
period the
context.
die
It's very
phase,
interesting.
leading the population into extinction. Although the mouse Utopia could house 3,000, the population began to decline at 2,200. In the shift from the equilibrium to the die phase, each animal became less aware of associates, despite all animals being pushed closer together. Dr. Calhoun concluded that the mice could not effectively deal with the repeated contact of so many individuals. The evidence of violence increased to the point where most individuals had had their tails bitten to some degree. Eventually, the entire mouse population perished. Dr. Calhoun's experiment is a classic example of a typical population and its growth when left unchecked.
So, we'll talk about this. Now, this and these realizations put me in a precarious position because they evoke in me a deep pessimism. I feel the pessimism that the right brain must feel towards the left brain's master plans, towards progress. The left brain chanting about its dopaminergic plan. People talk to me about how everything's going to work out, and I feel like it's like arguing with a left brain. I have no interest in it because you're just going to get insulted and put down, and no one's going to take serious what could be going on. And it makes you wonder, and it makes me wonder, because this question of purpose and mission and destiny becomes precarious at this point. What does your purpose mean if there won't be a society in 440 years? What does it mean then? If you're living at the end of Rome, what's the point in, trying to get a position and status and get along with Rome if Rome's about to collapse? You're probably better off hanging out with the barbarians at that point. At least then you'll have, you'll become a king or something like this. It becomes very, very interesting. And then this becomes quite strange when you look at all these popular conceptions, because you wonder what is going on. For example, the architects of the world, with all their master plans, they definitely know this stuff is happening. They're wise people, and they have some incredible information, and they're not in their position for no reason. And so you wonder, like, are these people aware of this and they're putting in place systems that will help manage what happens? Like, for example, say we are in the end of Rome, or these people creating a new institution like the Christian church to put into place to make sure that there's some type of stability when everything goes crazy. Maybe something like that is going on. And does that explain their actions better than just assuming that they're evil monsters trying to kill you? But then there's also another even more frightening possibility that these people might be as caught up with the left-brained collective zeitgeist in Utopia as everyone else. And they might be charging towards this Utopia thinking it's going to all work out. And then it will all go to crap, and it'll be a disaster, and they of course will have ruined the world, and we will all have, everyone will suffer because of it. And it makes you wonder, and it makes you scratch your noggin. It's hard to figure out. It really is hard to figure out, and I'm not saying I have the answer, but I do have a perspective, and this is all that I can offer in this position, because I know a lot of boyos are very anxious about this stuff, because a lot of what's going on now is the discussion of the next industrial revolution. There's going to be a step forward, and this next industrial revolution is going to have an effect on our destiny that is as significant as the first one, perhaps even more. And you wonder, are we going to go deeper into this sterilized condom hell with this next industrial revolution, where we become less human, where we finally get slid into the pods of McKenna's matrix, and that is the end of us? Or is it going to be something a lot more beneficial, where we all ascend into the joyous consciousness, vibrant utopia that Terence McKenna promises? And then you wonder about other things, like, will it be a sort of exclusionary thing where the people who are enlightened enough to listen to Terence McKenna will get to go along with the party, but the people who weren't, or the people who didn't understand, will get left behind? And all these things become incredibly frightening, and it becomes very, very difficult to figure this stuff out. But of course, that fright, that fear, is a secret blessing, because now suddenly your life is interesting, isn't it? Now suddenly you've got a future, and now suddenly you'll understand the way to find a purpose, because it's through existential dread that you actually get in contact with something that is real, to something that gives you purpose.